Good afternoon, everyone. We're in the Committee of the Whole meeting Tuesday, April 11th. Athens following increase Teal'c has Squamish Owaino. Welcome to the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. There's an agenda in front of council. I'm going to propose that we just change the order and move item 4 between item 3.1 and 3.2 to accommodate the Seniors Society to be able to come and speak to the item 3.2. So with that proposal, I'm looking for a motion from council to adopt the agenda. Moved by Councilor Kent, seconded by Councilor Reyes. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. First item of business is Kwantlen Polytechnic University, and I'll just pass it over to Janet to introduce our guest.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Heinzman. Good afternoon, Council and members of the community that are with us streaming live and folks that have joined us today in the audience. We've arranged for this presentation on the Southwest BC Bioregion Food Project, which has been prepared by the Institute for Sustainable Food Systems at Kwantlen Polytechnic University. With us is Kent Mullenix, who's the director of the Institute. And this study was endorsed with funding by the district back in 2013, along with, and has been supported with funding from many other financial partners and local government partners within the bioregion, and Kent will tell us more about that in terms of the project purpose, the methods, the findings. This work is very useful for the municipality and others in the bioregion because it helps us inform local food systems policy and different initiatives to grow our local food resilience and food production and distribution and all the key parts of the food system. It also aligns with our food and economic development policies to increase local food production activity and infrastructure to support that. And as Council is aware, we've partnered with the SLRD and we've received funding from the Investment Agriculture Foundation to undertake an agricultural land use inventory this year in preparation for agricultural area planning in the years to come. And so this is very much a strategic tie-in with our plans as well. So we'd like to welcome Kent with us here today. Over to you.
Welcome, Kent.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you to sit just because we're our microphone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so if you stand up, the microphones don't take it up.
Okay.
But
No worries.
it's informal committee, so
Okay.
just
Okay. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to brief you on the outcomes of the Southwest BC Bioregional Food System Design Project. The full briefing is a 2.5-hour session, so today I'll keep it at the highest level, but please feel free to ask any questions you might have, or if there's any clarification, I'm happy to provide it. I have given you the executive summary of this, and the full report is online, and copies have been left here with staff. I want to begin by acknowledging the substantial support from 4 foundations: Real Estate Foundation, Vancity EnviroFund, the Webster Foundation out of Montreal, and Vancouver Foundation, who provided substantial funding for this 4-year project. But I'd also like to especially thank the District of Squamish for supporting the project and providing funding. You all joined 8 other municipalities in Southwest BC that provided funding for the project, and those 8 joined a total of 23 local governments that endorsed the project ultimately. And we're very appreciative for your support in particular, and for the support of all of the municipalities and regional district governments that did support this. It was important to us that local government understand what we were trying to do and why we were trying to do it, and ultimately lend their endorsement. And Squamish's early endorsement was particularly important to us because it helped us approach other municipalities, and so I'm doubly appreciative. We also like to note that that 19 community organizations endorsed the project as well that are concerned with food and food systems and community. So I'm going to give a little information about the background of the project, and then we'll move into methodology and results. And again, please don't hesitate to stop me and ask any questions. This project was predicated on the understanding that our contemporary food system, the one that feeds us, simply is not sustainable environmentally, economically, or socially. It is challenged. And to address those challenges, there is increasing interest in the localization of food systems, or the regionalization of food system. Folks believe that the regionalization or localization of food systems can, in fact, address some of these sustainability challenges. But ultimately, there's very little information that supports those contentions one way or another, and therefore, we assess that more accurate information on which to base strategies to bring about a more sustainable food system is needed. And that was the overarching objective of this project, is simply to bring solid information to the table, informing discussion around appropriate and sustainable food systems, and in particular, the regionalization or localization of food systems. So it was the objective of this program to develop a method for assessing the potentials of regionalized food systems, and then applying that method to the Southwest British Columbia bioregion, and in doing so, provide data-driven information about the potential to increase food production here for local markets. And if we did, could we improve food self-reliance? Could we benefit the local and provincial economy? Could we create jobs? And simultaneously, could we derive benefit from localization in addition to jobs and food self-reliance in terms of environmental stewardship? So we sought to look at the potentials of a food system from a food production, food self-reliance perspective, from an economic benefit perspective, and from an environmental stewardship perspective. Not individually, but collectively. And this project, I'm pleased to say, is absolutely unique in the world. Nobody has ever looked at how a local regional food system could advance food self-reliance and the economy and environmental stewardship. But it's absolutely imperative, if we are to bring forth a sustainable food system, that all three of those elements of sustainability be simultaneously considered. We chose the Southwest BC bioregion because we believe that humanity's economic efforts need to be more closely linked to the places that they live. One of the driving factors in our sustainability challenges is that we have de-linked economic activity from the environments of the places we live and the ecological capacities of the places we live. And in the food system, we have an opportunity to re-link that. So bioregions are areas that share similar topography, plant and animal life, and human culture. In Southwest BC, it turns out that our bioregion is essentially the 5 contiguous regional districts that we call the Lower Mainland. We developed a computational model to compare Southwest BC's contemporary food system to future food systems. And really what our model enabled us to do is conduct what-if analysis in comparison to a baseline. Our baseline was the year 2011, When we started this project, that was the year of the most contemporary agriculture census, and was the year that the most recent agricultural land use inventories were available for. So we our modeling process essentially allows us to do what-if analysis, and we asked questions. What if we continued with a business-as-usual approach to our agriculture and food system? That is, what if we kept growing what we're growing for the markets that we're growing them for? But what if we prioritize production of food that meets local food need instead of the export-focused market? What if we did that and we mitigated some of the environmental impacts, negative environmental impacts from agriculture? And then what if we did those things but farmed more land in 2050? So in essence, our model allows for what-if analysis. It's important that I convey to you that our model does not predict the future. It is only a tool to evaluate potential outcomes. If this happens, if this happens, if this happens, if this happens. But in no way is it predictive. So it simply allows us to compare possible outcomes given alternative strategies and factors. So we literally modeled hundreds of scenarios, and ultimately 5 of them pretty much told the story of potential futures in our bioregion. And we evaluated all these scenarios, including the 5 that I'll talk about, against 14 indicators, food self-reliance being one, and the amount of food that we actually can produce against our diet. And we evaluated our scenarios against 7 economic indicators: jobs, gross domestic product generation, income generation, total economic output, etc. And against 6 ecological indicators: greenhouse gas emissions, our food ecological footprint, nitrogen and phosphorus balance between animal manure production and crop need, wildlife habitat quality, and habitat connectivity. All of the indicators were vetted by planners and citizens and activists in workshops prior to the construction of the model. So we feel pretty comfortable that these were good indicators. There were indicators that we would have liked to have incorporated in the model, but we simply didn't have the data or the requisite information to do so, which brings me to a point that I want to make. The model is predicated on available data. So data is put into the model, and then calculations are made. And I want you to know that we use the absolutely best, most accurate data available. And if the data was not available, we didn't use it. We didn't make anything up. And I emphasize this because I want you to know that you can have complete reliability on the output. It is solid information. It is data-driven information. There is no speculation in the data that we have generated. So, our baseline year was 2011, as I said, when the population is 2.7 million people, and there is about 165,000 hectares of arable land available for agriculture, and about 101,000 hectares in production. We calculated that hypothetically, we could be about 40% food self-reliant. that is an optimum level of, a maximum level of food self-reliance that we could achieve given the current land base and levels of production. The fact of the matter is, nobody knows how much food grown in Southwest BC actually satisfies consumer demand in Southwest BC. And I mean nobody. And in fact, during the course of this study, we were approached by the Ministry of Agriculture and asked if we knew. And of course, we had already discovered that they didn't know because we were looking for the information as well. So the fact of the matter is nobody really knows. But based on what we grow and what our population in 2011 eats, we could hypothetically be 40% food self-reliant. If that level of food self-reliance, though, is entirely dependent upon continued importation of livestock feed. And this is an important point. If livestock feed were not to continue to be imported to feed dairy cows, poultry, and egg layers, then our food self-reliance would fall immediately to 12%. So even this level of food self-reliance is utterly dependent upon the importation of feed grain for livestock. We also determined that our ecological footprint of the food, the ecological footprint of our food consumption is very high. And I won't belabor that, but it exceeds global per person capacity by a long shot. We also determined that the ALR and Crown grazing lands offer pretty poor habitat for wildlife and specific regional species. But that's no surprise because agriculture is destructive of habitat inherently. We also were able to, yes.
Just very quickly, different presenters like different formats. Would you prefer we do questions as we go along?
Yeah,
or would
sure.
you prefer to get to the end?
Either way, if there's a point of clarification that would help you all
Okay.
understand this, that's great.
Yeah, sure. Just a quick question. You mentioned that the 40% food reliance would drop to 12 based on the feed supply. How much of the feed supply do we get locally?
Zero.
Zero. So,
Hey,
and when you say
we
import,
produce-
are you talking about from other provinces, or are you talking from the U.S. and other sources?
Probably from, we don't know. We did not look at where it came from. It's important though.
Yeah, no, it's very important, but I'm just wondering, on the basis of sustainability, I mean, if it came from the States, that's one thing. If it's something that's produced within Canada, it makes it a little more sustainable, a little
Absolutely.
easier to access. So
Absolutely.
just curious as to how that was defined.
Yeah, so we didn't determine where the grain came from, but it is not produced in the bioregion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, other hay and silage is produced in the bioregion, and that was factored into our calculations. So grain is the driver. And this is a good question. In our subsequent model runs, we assumed that grain would continue to be imported. And that makes sense because grain is not perishable. It's 12% water as opposed to being 80 to 90% water, and is easily transported without refrigeration on rail. And so from a sustainability standpoint, it makes sense.
Maybe what we'll do is if there's a point of clarification about the information presented, we'll address the question right
Okay.
away. But if it's more of a discussion point, we'll save it to the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can wear? Okay, great.
I have a bunch of questions.
Okay.
Okay. We also determined that nitrogen and phosphorus produced from animal manure exceeds somewhat crop demand in the area, and that results in a pollutant. We also determined that we import about $1.8 billion of food annually to supplement our diet, and to us that represents $1.8 billion in economic leakage, and that's an important point. So if we then move forward and compare the baseline to the year 2050, our population will increase by 60%. That's what it's predicted to increase from to 4.3 million people. If we looked at farm practices being the same, and crops we grow being the same in 2011, and the land allocation being somewhere between 101 hectares and 125 hectares, this is what the outcome would look like. If we have the same crop and livestock mix, our food self-reliance will drop to 28%. And of course, that again is dependent on imported grain, so without imported grain it would drop below 12%. But if we change the crop mix to crops that would meet local demand, we could increase food self-reliance from the 2011 40% baseline to 56% self-reliant on the same land base. And if we impose some environmental mitigation practices, namely hedgerows and riparian buffers, our food self-reliance would drop to about 47, 49%. That's simply because we'd be taking agriculture land out of production, but improving habitat for native species. But if we farmed all of the available land in the ALR here, we could increase food self-reliance to 57%, even with a doubling of the population. From an economic impact standpoint, in 2050, if the same crop and livestock mix is produced, the economic impact doesn't change. So if we simply, this is kind of apparent unless if you think about it, if we keep growing the same things in the same quantities, given the same economic environment as we did in 2050 as we do now, we're going to realize virtually no increased economic benefit. But what we will see is a substantial increase in our imported food requirement. And it will increase 82% from $1.8 billion of imported food to $2.9 billion. So the economic leakage would nearly double by 2050. And by economic leakage, just to be clear, we are talking about food money leaving our economy by the close of business each and every day. But if our production mix changed and farmers produced crops and stock according to local food need, the economic impact would increase rather substantially. It would increase by 50% if the same amount of farmland were farmed, approximately 101 hectares. That's a 50% increase in economic contribution to British Columbia. And if we impose the environmental mitigation practices, hedgerows and riparian buffers and a nitrogen phosphorus balance, that again would reduce production, but it would still increase the economic impact by 30% over a business as usual future. And if we focused production on the local market and we expanded to available farmland to optimize or maximize food self-reliance, all of the economic indicators that we looked at would benefit, indicating economic benefit to the province, all would nearly double. And the bottom line is, for our communities and for our province, the big economic benefit in agriculture and the food system is not advancing an export-oriented agriculture, but advancing a local food system. It will absolutely benefit our local and provincial economies. I would like to note that the submodel that we use to calculate the economic benefit is the province's input-output model. we didn't make this model up. This is the model that the province uses to estimate economic impacts for any economic activity. And I might also add that it takes into account the loss of revenue from the replaced, or economic activity from the replaced sector. So as we, what it says then is, if and when we shift from an export-focused agri-food sector to a local regionalized food sector, the balance of economic activity lost from the export-focused sector plus the economic activity gained from a regionally or locally focused sector would result in economic impact in the province, nearly 100% increase.
Councillor Blake.
Yeah, so, can I notice on one of the slides, it said, so your model assumes that farm practices just remain the same. But agriculture is one of the more innovative sectors in our economy, and so your model would change if people got more efficient, like the benefits,
It will.
yeah, because people are getting more efficient in terms of watering, or the types of machinery they're using, or the way they're raising.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if we, obviously you can model for that because things will change over time, but you can see that these numbers may be higher.
They might be, and yes, when you do modeling work like this, you have to do a static analysis. You can't anticipate what will happen in the future. I can tell you, Councillor, that we did model what would happen with a 25% yield increase and a 25% yield decrease, and it doesn't affect the outcome very much. And we did that modeling because we wanted to look at the impact of climate change. The best estimates based on IPPC estimates of crop yields due to climate change are reflected in a 25% increase or a 25% decrease. Ultimately, it didn't affect it very much.
I just want to, anyone in the public, if you have a question, open, come and sit at the table and please let us know.
Thanks. Fantastic work, first of all.
This isn't the last slide though, there's more, or is this?
There's a little bit more.
Okay, you know what, I can wait.
Okay.
I'd like to see the full.
Okay.
You may address.
Okay. But Councillor, to further address your question, ultimately it's the amount of land in production. That's what really determines our level of food self-reliance and the component economic
Yeah,
benefit.
clarification.
It's really land, which suggests that this land is important to us economically and in terms of food self-reliance. That's really what it says.
So, and point of clarification,
Yes.
I do wonder about that, and to Councillor Elliott's point, which is a really great one about the technology changing, is that land is going to become less relevant to farming as we move to vertical. Everywhere that's lost a lot of land has moved indoors to vertical farming and use different resources like fish farming and it's a lot of farming has moved into industrial land as opposed to using ALR land. And did the study at all look at indoor growth or vertical farming,
No.
or it only relied on ALR land
That's right.
as far
That's
as
That's right.
future sustainability?
Yes, that is right. We looked at the land base and what it would, and the levels of food self-reliance it would support. I have to tell you, as an agriculturist of 4 decades, I'm absolutely convinced that only land-based agriculture will feed the world. I do believe that urban agriculture and high-tech agriculture will have a contribution, but I don't believe it will feed the world. I do just, yeah. So that's why we didn't focus on it. But also it's kind of a maybe not proposition. And in terms of sustainability, high-tech agriculture requires a lot of resource, a lot of input. So it's up in the air, but it certainly has a role to play. But we were not able to look at it in this study. It's important to note that the economic outcomes that we modeled and I've just conveyed are absolutely dependent on the concomitant development of a post-production sector. The aggregation, processing, storage, distribution, and sales. And the real economic value and benefit to our communities will be derived from advancing a robust production sector focused on local food demand, coupled with an appropriate post-production sector. That's where the real economic benefit will come from. We were not able to model what that post-production sector will look like, but that will be a focus of the Institute in the years to come. So the post-production sector is really crucial in achieving the economic benefits. In terms of ecological impact, our study clearly indicated that local food and imported food don't greatly impact our ecological food footprint, don't greatly impact the amount of carbon dioxide that is emitted into the atmosphere. If we want to reduce the ecological footprint of our diet, then we're going to have to change our diet, and that is clear. And the single change that can occur is the reduction of red meat consumption. That is what drives our excessive food footprint. So if you gave up red meat today, you would immediately reduce your food ecological footprint by 33%. That's the how and how of it. We would be able to achieve these high levels of food self-reliance and match nitrogen and phosphorus, balance nitrogen and phosphorus production from manure with nitrogen and phosphorus demand for crops. But saying that it does belie the real problem. And the real problem in Southwest BC is that our animal agriculture is highly concentrated in various locales, and the production of nitrogen and phosphorus far exceeds in those locales that which is needed by crop plants there. To really achieve this balance would take a sophisticated mechanism for getting the manure where it's needed by the crops, or dispersing animal agriculture throughout the bioregion more, reducing its concentration. We also found that we can support biodiversity by planting hedgerows and riparian buffers across the agricultural landscape. Wildlife habitat capacity would increase doing so, and habitat connectivity would increase substantially in an expanded scenario, implementing those enhancements. So ultimately, what we hope our study conveys is that we have some choices to make in our food system relative to its economic outcomes and its environmental outcomes. We can't, given the population increase that we anticipate, and even today, we'll never achieve 100% food self-reliance. We'll always have some imported foods based on seasonality of availability, the fact that we want to eat mangoes and oranges and drink coffee. So 100% food self-reliance is not a realistic goal, but we can achieve significant levels of food self-reliance in Southwest BC. And the highest levels of food self-reliance will be achieved by changing what we produce relative to what we eat, and by expanding the area of land that is in production. And we can substantially increase bioregional food self-reliance and accrue the concomitant economic benefit from doing so, even with a doubling of the population, if we concertedly promote a local regional food system and the appropriate utilization of the land resource that we have in this bioregion. There are trade-offs. When we expand agriculture, we will reduce habitat in the area, and we will reduce carbon stocks in the area. And we will reduce our export-oriented agri-food sector. So there are trade-offs, and that's really the ultimate point of this study. There are choices to make. There's a future to facilitate one way or another, and there are choices to make.
So the carbon stock interests me, just protection of riparian zones as we convert to ALR land. And if the overall impact actually increases the carbon footprint quite a bit. And you were talking about some mitigation that.
Yeah. So if we expand, Councillor, it would expand into wooded areas mostly. And so we'd be reducing carbon stocks. And the imposition of riparian buffers and hedgerows won't make up for that. It will to a significant extent, but not completely. So we just have to acknowledge that if we were to expand agriculture into these now currently unfarmed areas, we are going to release carbon into the atmosphere. There's no doubt about that. So I want to conclude by saying that the full report to this project is online and downloadable gratis, as is the executive summary that you have been given. And then along with that, this represents the most thorough and kind of highest level report. And it was designed especially for councils and planners and community interests and economic development folks. It's not replete with methodology. It explains enough and gives enough context, but it's more about outcomes and choices. Accompanying this or backing it up is a whole series of research briefs that are focused on specific domains within the study. And these too are available online and downloadable gratis. And they get into the methodology and much more, the technical aspects of our methodology. And these are both backed up by peer-reviewed journal articles. Two of which we've produced and published, and with 6 more in the works. So it's important that we do that so that you know that this information can withstand the rigor of academic, scientific review. So with that, I thank you. Again, I thank Squamish for its endorsement and support of this project, and you can count on the Institute to support any future efforts you all have to advance sustainable food systems, whatever the choices you make are.
Thanks, Ken. I've got a number of councillors that want to ask questions. I want to thank you. I know we approved these monies about 4 years ago, and from my point of view, the investment we made in this returned in spades, because the fact that it's founded on data and scientific foundations is really valuable as we start to layer on these other policies and inventories that we're trying to build, not only within the district of Squamish, but with the SLB as well. So thank you. I think that was great value for money. I've got Ted, Susan, Peter, and then Doug.
Thank you. We spent 2 hours this morning in budget.
You prefer this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a hard time following the budget, but this is this is one of my favorite topics. And I guess you know that in Squamish, you can put greenhouses in your backyards, just about the full size of your backyard, and have a food stand. This council did that with staff, so I'm proud of that. In just talking to Kent there earlier, an agriculturalist. So I thought, oh, what, an agriculturalist? So, Kent's got 4 degrees in agriculture. And that to me is just I wanted him to come over.
You want to be Kent when
I
you grow
wanted him to
up, is
come
that
over
right?
for a barbecue. You know, and I know our little group here in Squamish is collecting seeds for seed bank, so that's just one thing. And when you talk about the future, and you said you can't really predict the future, but if you start teaching kids how to grow food, I can predict that there'll be more food being grown everywhere. Susan touched on the greenhouse, and we have, you know, we have land in Squamish that is beautiful agricultural land that's being rezoned for, or not rezoned, is zoned for housing. And you know, there's some areas that are beautiful habitat that are going to be houses pretty soon, but I guess there's just nothing you can do about that. But anyway, thanks so much for that.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Well, Long
That's-
Road, and, you know, that whole area, near the, near this high school, or near this swimming pool, you know, all in back in there. 2-acre lots. I really enjoyed that, so, you know, we could spend a lot more money on this, in my opinion. Oh, so food bank, or seed banks. You know, you talk about, or I hear about multinationals controlling all the seeds, and then when you go to the seed sale here, you can actually bring seeds in, and you collect it and drop them off. That's all okay.
Until they make it illegal, which they've done in Europe.
It's illegal or it is
It's
legal?
illegal.
Illegal?
It's
Really want to see
illegal.
all that.
Thank you for the.
Yeah,
message.
point of clarification, because the councillor brought it up. It's important to acknowledge that protected agriculture will play an important role in our food system future. So poly houses, season extension, these kinds of modest technologies absolutely are important, and particularly in areas like Squamish, where the climate is challenging. So I was mostly referring to roboticized vertical towers. We've yet to demonstrate the effectiveness of those.
Thank you.
So I'm interested in, you touched on so many points, so did they measure the amount of land that was actually, like how much land is being used for exports, how much land is being used to grow agriculture for fuel, like canola or oils, or biofuels? So out of the land, out of the amount of hectares that are being used for agriculture in BC, how much of that is being used for export? And at the same time, while I'm on that subject, I'm interested in how our opposition of pipelines is going to affect the price of rail transport for agriculture. So people don't really relate the two, of the fact that we import all our feed, and we export food and import food, and most of it's done by rail transport. And if we start transporting our fuel by rail, it will become too expensive for agriculture to travel. Was that considered at all?
It was not. It's an interesting point, though. No.
That is the thing that concerns me the most, our opposition to things that force other sectors to utilize different modes of transport that end up impacting our food prices and sustainability in the end. So, and then the canola issue, which is really affecting the states,
Yeah.
growing too much corn
Yep.
and monocropping.
Yep. We know how much of various crops are grown in the province. We don't know what is exported, what is grown for local consumption or even provincial consumption, that of any
Or for
crop.
fuel as
Or
opposed to
fuel, or, yeah.
consumption.
Yeah, we just don't know. I can tell you that we virtually produce no oil crops and very few grain crops in this bioregion in any event. We didn't look at the whole province. We really focused on the Southwest BC bioregion. Ultimately, what we want to do is apply this model to all of the province's bioregions and then figure out what the sensible economic relationship is to advance maximum economic benefit and provincial food self-reliance. There are relationships that make sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, and further to that, so I'm assuming, or I'm hoping that you're sharing this information and your study with the province and with the ministry?
We are. We in fact, Councillor, we were asked to take this information to the Ministry of Agriculture executive team shortly after its completion, which we did. So they've been fully briefed and know of all the materials. And, yes.
Yeah, it's quite obvious that I think we need to explore all manners of agriculture, not just the ALR lands, but whatever is available given the full town. Thanks. Terrific presentation.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Two questions. One is, and I forget the exact number, but there was something like 160 or 70,000 hectares of available lands, and we're
That's
only
right.
using 101.
That's correct.
Is that difference located in any particular area, or is it scattered amongst the region?
Good question, and I don't believe I can give you a super accurate answer. I would believe it's distributed pretty much throughout the bioregion. So for example, Surrey, one third of Surrey is ALR land and 1/3 of that ALR land is not farmed. The township of Langley has more ALR land than any Metro Vancouver municipality, and very little of that land is farmed.
And I think of our regional district, Squamish Willow Regional District, and there's agricultural areas around Pemberton. There's some in the upper Squamish Valley here, in little pockets here and there, and some over in the Willow area, but it's a fairly mountainous region, and from my understanding, that is not necessarily conducive to most agriculture. It's not difficult to farm aside of a mountain, unless you want to terrace it or something like that. So I was just wondering where these areas are that we might expand into.
Well, I can't answer that question definitively, but I can tell you that our model is predicated, the crop production modeling is predicated on the utilization of class 1 through 4 agriculture lands, which are all classified by the province as farmable land. We also modeled in the class 5 and 6 pasture lands, but only for pasture, and then class 7 lands were not included. So our model is predicated on the utilization of arable, farmable land in Southwest BC, not mountainsides.
So, can I follow up on your question
Sure.
then? If there's all this ALR land that's not being farmed, did you study or do you have any ideas about why that is, and is there something we could do to encourage that, or what's holding it back from being farmed?
Well, our study didn't focus on that. We are conducting studies that are focusing on that, but they won't, because we want to know what this.
Is there an impediment?
We're actually looking at the valuation trends of ALR land over the last 15, 16 years, and ownership trends and use trends, and trying to bring some data-driven information to who owns this land and what's it being used for. But the fact of the matter is, I can offer my opinion on this.
Sure, I'm asking.
We have economically marginalized agriculture for decades, and agriculture operates at a very narrow margin, typically not being profitable. In fact, agriculture in British Columbia has lost millions of dollars collectively over the last 5 years. The only 3 sectors that have consistently been profitable are the supply managed sectors. And British Columbia is just like Alberta, which is just like Saskatchewan, which is just like every province in the country, which is just like every state in the United States, which is just like every country of the world that's adopted industrial agriculture methodologies and economies. The objective is to push the value of primary production down to maximize the profitability of all the other post-production elements of the supply and value chain. And in fact, other than agriculture, every actor in the food system expects a 20% return on investment, and they get it. But they get it by pushing down the margins in primary production. So the simple answer to the question is primary agriculturists cannot compete economically, and they certainly can't compete against the value lift from the development of ALR land for high rises.
So are there any obvious triggers that can course correct that?
Absolutely eliminates land speculation completely. That would change, that would be a game changer. But we're reluctant to do that.
How would you do that?
Simply say you cannot develop agriculture land. You cannot own agriculture land unless you're an agriculturist and you're going to farm it. Be trained, produce a business plan, and that's that, which is exactly what they do in many European countries. Yeah. So if we're going to bring back economic viability to primary production, we're going to have to change the level of the playing field substantially through policy.
It was actually the second question, and I was curious in the report, you stated that one of the challenges to sustainability is declining oil reserves. And I'm just curious where oil fits in this production. Is it just a transportation issue?
No. Tillage, fertilizers, pesticides. There is not one dimension of the conventional industrial agriculture system that is not predicated on fossil fuels. And in fact, since the industrialization of agriculture, the investment of energy to the yield of energy is 5 to 1 for most foods. For ground beef, it's 50 to 1. And prior to the industrialization of agriculture, it represented not a negative energy balance, but a positive energy balance. We derive 2.5 units of energy for every 1 unit of energy we put into primary production, instead of putting in 5 units of energy and getting 1 back. We have turned agriculture, the eloquence of agriculture, completely on its head from an energy standpoint.
Thanks. Yeah. That's really interesting. I look at the future, that's where I think vertical growing can change that, because you can actually carbon capture and turn it into energy instead of actually using fossil fuels to burn. So I'm looking forward to a future of that. But you mentioned policy, and that's where I was going. I think about land use and encouraging local transition into localized food systems, and I wonder about whether it's provincial or federal or local policy that can affect a farmer growing on his land and making it sustainable and actually making it economical with all the systems and energy. You know, if we want to have it be less fossil fuel predicated, that we're going to have to supplement and have policy that encourages farmers to use their land in different ways. So is there any plans in the future to study the policy implementation that will affect economic development for the farming community, that will make the choice easier to actually purchase ALR land and use it for as it was intended, or any other farming, vertical farming?
Councillor, the answer to that is yes. We are getting ready to engage in some policy exploration work to address some of the more sticky aspects of this. Not sure which aspects we'll be looking at, but ultimately we don't really see ourselves as the promoters of policy. We see ourselves as a generator of information that policymakers need. Yeah, but we do acknowledge that regardless of what our future will be, it will be driven by policy.
Yes.
And that drives our economy. We created this economy. Through policy, we created the current environment that agriculturists operate in. Most clearly, an example of this is that there is not 1 square inch of agriculture land in southwest BC that is valued for agriculture. Not one. Whatever it's valued for, I don't know, but it's not valued for agriculture. If I could look anywhere here at a piece of land and the price of it would not be commensurate with what production agriculture could service. And that, to me, is driven by policy that creates an economic environment that supports that occurring.
Is it locally possible to actually, you mentioned that you can restrict ownership of ALR land. Is that something that's provincially or municipally driven?
Well, I think to advance an effective, sustainable future, it's going to take coordinated, concerted effort at a municipal, provincial, and federal level. We just have to decide what our economic objectives are.
Councillor Race and then Councillor Elliott, and then we've got to wrap it up.
So I'm wondering about the efficiency. We're talking about the need for efficiency and so forth. And what is the efficiency of things such as organic farming, which seems to be growing, judging by the space in the grocery stores devoted to it, versus what you refer to as the industrialized farming?
Conventional farming, yeah. So the science is becoming very clear on that. For some crops, organic production methodologies result in greater yields. For some crops, slightly reduced yields. On the average, the yields are nearly equal. And then if you factor in other environmental and long-term benefits, it's clear that organic agriculture can do the job. But it's also important that we acknowledge that conventional agriculture produces about 3,500 calories for every man, woman, and child on Earth, which is way more than we need. So the issue really isn't yield at all. And industrial agriculture really is about gaining efficiencies with machines and not production efficiencies. Actually, small-scale agriculture is much more productive on a per unit area basis.
Councillor Elliott, you have the last word.
All right, well, no, Ken, you give me so much to think about today. I think my head's about to explode. And I appreciate that. And I know members of our Food Policy Council are here today, and I think what this does for me, having this material, is that as our Food Policy Council and as this council looks at changing policy or, adding different things to our food security sort of ecology here, we understand how they're interconnected. And that is so valuable to me, is to understand if we put more of this land into chicken production, how that impacts the whole system versus putting more land into plant stock. So I'm so appreciative of this, and also that it's written in a way that our whole community can understand it. You don't have to be an agriculturalist to understand the results of this study. And so I think, like the mayor said, we will gain so much from this for such a small investment up front. And so I feel grateful that we have this tool to help us in our decision making.
Yeah, why don't we give the last word to Sarah, who's here in
Thank
policy.
you. I just wanted to make a couple things clear for council, that in terms of where this piece of work leaves off, the funding that was just recently endorsed for the Whistler Center for Sustainability, they are taking this work and convening a regional table to address food systems work and what are the types of implementation pieces that can come along with this. So there's an absolute direct link. We don't know exactly what that process looks like yet, but we will be involved. And for our part within the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District, as part of this larger bioregion, this will be an excellent way to kind of keep moving forward on this. Secondly, the agricultural land use inventory that's cycling up for this summer, to Councillor Race's point in terms and questions around, how much of our local ALR land is being used and farmed and what for and what the alternative uses are. We will have a clear picture of that through the land use inventory, and it's the last land use inventory to be completed in conjunction with Area D for the whole SLRD, which is going to be a great piece of information. And then just in terms of policy, last word, this is a topic that we have been grappling with the Squamish Food Policy Council in terms of embedding the food charter, and in our discussion draft of the OCP that's forthcoming shortly, you will be able to see the types of policy interventions that we are wanting to test out and incorporate into the official community plan, firstly, and in which regulation needs to follow, because the agriculturally supported or agriculture lands within Squamish are not necessarily linked right now strongly or protected through zoning or land use designation. They're just identified on a schedule, but we are not doing what we can necessarily yet. So we're looking to incorporate policies and regulations, and so this is very much in line with what we're up to.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank your teams. I know there's a lot of people that went into this. I think it's great value for money, and it's sort of it set the table for where we would like to take our policies in the future, and we look forward to maybe some of the policy development, the work that you're working through at the moment. Thank you very much, Ken.
My pleasure. Thank
And
you.
thanks everyone who came, and I'll just entertain a motion to close, and then we'll have a little quick 2 or 3 minute break. Moved by Councillor Spell, second by Councillor Race. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. We're in recess for. Good afternoon, everyone. We are in our committee of the whole meeting of Tuesday, April 11th, and we're on item 3.2, a Squamish Senior Center revitalization. I want to welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. Hope you all had a good Easter tea. And welcome Mr. Sherlock here, representing the Senior Center Society. And we do try to make these committees very collaborative and open, so if you do want to speak to the topic, just put your hand up. If there's a space at the table, come and sit with us. If the table's full, we'll just ask you to go to the podium. But in the meantime, we're just going to hear staff's presentations so we know what we're talking about.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good afternoon. We are here to present the Senior Center Revitalization Project team recommendations to you with our project team members. My name is Tim Hoskin, and I'm the Director of Rec Services, and I'm pleased to introduce 2 of our project team members. We've got Kate Drexler here and Elizabeth Gillis, and we also have Catherine Rockendale, who's our community engagement specialist that we brought on to help facilitate our engagement process in meetings. So the Senior Center opened, just a little bit of background, in 2009. It was an amenity contribution. It has been operated by Recreation Services from Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. It is opened in the evenings as required, and there has been all ages programming and rentals in there. The Squamish Senior Center Society fundraises, supports, and promotes volunteerism, and they advise staff on programming at the center. And depending on the season, the center can be opened in the evenings as often as 2 to 3 nights per week. And we often have in there dance, art, and yoga programs of all ages. We also meet monthly with the Senior Center Society at our collaboration meetings on a monthly basis. Just a bit more project background. The Parks and Recreation Master Plan was adopted in early 2013. And regarding the Senior Center, there was significant engagement with the community, specifically seniors in the Senior Center Society. The recommendations from the project team do align with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Up on the slide, you can see what is one of the key obstacles that we're trying to overcome. So more project background. Some of the key recommendations that are relevant to today's conversation. As the Parks and Rec Master Plan recommends expanding program offerings, adult education, arts, and cultural programs. It also directed to consider a name change. It also brings up to retain programming commitment to seniors 9 to 4 as another key commitment. It also asks or directs that we open the center to the full community for programming from 4 until closing. We signed a collaboration agreement to bring some direction and understanding to our relationship with the Senior Center Society. And one of the key goals out of that was to improve the programming and utilization of the center. And one of the goals out of that was to set up a project team with a broad spectrum members. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. In May of 2016, Recreation Services started the process to find a project team. They advertised in the community for people to join the team. They asked for and reviewed applications from those interested. They did brief telephone interviews with the applicants and chose 15 community members with varied interests and perspectives, including connections to the organizations that you see listed on the slide. The backgrounds of the members included teaching, consulting to business and nonprofit, and a care consultant for healthy aging and dementia. All had an interest in or experience with seniors. The result is a project team comprised of mostly older adults, 55 years plus, with some representation of adults as well, and 13 committed volunteer community members with varying interests and perspectives.
The primary objective of the group was to increase the number of individuals and groups visiting and using the center. To achieve this, the team developed and distributed a survey requesting feedback from community members about their experiences with the center. In addition to the survey, focus groups were held, as well as one-to-one interviews. The purpose of these focus groups and the one-to-one interviews were to provide opportunity for the community to share openly about their experiences and to identify any gaps that the survey may have missed in regards to programming and use. Throughout the process of collecting, sorting, and analyzing the data, the project team stood by their principles of maximizing the utilization of the senior center, improving programming for the benefit of those 55 years of age and older, creating an inviting, inclusive social setting, promoting information available to encourage adults to age actively, and to adhere to a transparent process.
This project was initially introduced in November of 2015. It was introduced first to the Squamish Senior Center Society, and it was made part of the collaboration agreement. A project plan was drafted, and a project page was launched on the district website. In May of 2016, the project was launched with a call for project team members, and in June of 2016, a project team was created and a terms of reference was developed. Between July and February of 2017, 5 project team meetings were held, and during that time, meetings were held with the Senior Center Society as well to involve them in the process. Meetings with both groups were facilitated by Catherine Rockendale, who was able to guide the process, ensuring that all voices were heard, that all community feedback was included, and that our project objectives and outcomes were met. In August and October, this was our major feedback gathering phase. A survey was developed with the project team and was advertised through various channels to ensure that we could get as many responses as possible. As Kate mentioned, project team members also felt it was important to interview in person various community groups. So the team created a list of community groups that they wanted to connect with, and they worked together to complete these one-on-one interviews. Groups who were not able to meet were able to fill out a questionnaire. Between November and January, the project team compiled all of the input received. So feedback and responses were grouped into themes that were created at the start of the project, and those themes were programming, facility and facility hours, food services, marketing, and communication. Theming was done as a group initially, but in order to complete quite a massive task, many of the project team members came in again on their own time in order to complete this. The project team then presented these draft recommendations to staff who prepared the open house materials. In March 2017, these draft recommendations were presented at a community open house, and attendees were asked to fill out a workbook to share their thoughts and provide their feedback. Draft recommendations were also posted online on the project page, as well as posted at Brennan Park Recreation Centre and the Squamish Senior Centre after the open house, so that community members still had an opportunity to provide their feedback. At the end of March 2017, the project team met one last time to finalize recommendations, which brings us to today.
So I'm just going to speak a little bit about the International Association for Public Participation Values. The core values, as listed here and available on the IP2 website, were part of what framed this process. I was brought on in October of 2016 to ensure the process was fair and objective and balanced, looking at the diversity of stakeholders and ensuring that a balance was held between the different groups. Initially, we had a meeting with the Senior Centre Society because they wanted to hear their concerns about the process, the history of the relationship with Recreation Services, where they had concerns about the process, things hadn't gone smoothly, and power imbalances, all different kinds of things. At that meeting, they articulated their concerns about that. They felt that, a lot of different concerns, and certainly they articulated that a concern with any name change, that it remain a center for seniors. They had very strong perspectives on that that I'm sure you've heard about and will hear more about. The process, in that meeting, one of the things that I shared with the group was that a fair and objective process doesn't mean that everyone gets what they want. In any public engagement, a decision is made, and the decision may not represent every single interest, but if it's balanced and it looks at the trade-offs between different stakeholders and partners, and it's done in a fair and equitable way, then that is a process that represents all interests. However, one of the things that I did mention in that meeting was also, I often ask people, if the decision doesn't go your way, what would you need in that situation? And it's something to consider for all stakeholders, because often people don't get what they want fully in a public process. So in terms of the meetings going forward, one of the things that did happen was at the March 9th meeting, which was the last meeting that we had, we did a number of polls around the recommendations, and there was general support for all of the recommendations. The group actually asked to do a vote around the name change, and I would just say that at that meeting, it was quite clear that the majority of the Seniors Center Revitalization Committee supported a name change, and one individual who represented the Senior Society did not, and asked that it still be called the Squamish Senior Activity Center, or some name similar to that. The other thing I would say is, in that meeting on March the 9th, it was Tim Hoskins, the Director of Recreation, articulated that recommendations would be, and a report would be developed, that it would be going before council, and that just to let the committee know that there were two possible dates. One was April 4th and the other was April 11th, and those meetings would likely be scheduled between 1 and 4. So to let the committee know that, all the committee members, including the two representatives from the Senior Center Society, that was what was happening, just so that people could put it in their calendars, and also brief different people they were working with. So I think in terms of I can answer any specific questions that council might have around the process, particularly the tools we use, but at this time I won't go into detail on that. But I'm more than comfortable to answer any questions on IB2.
Thank you, Cal. Elizabeth.
The project team was committed to receiving comments and suggestions from as many people in the community as possible. This slide shows the statistical results of this commitment, including 437 senior center revitalization project surveys completed either online or in hard copy. There were 2,168 individual survey comments which were received, sorted, and themed by the project team. 71% of the respondents to the survey were 50 years plus. There were 214 senior center society surveys completed. There were 6 meetings with the Squamish Senior Society Board of Directors. And there were 57 community members attended an open house held at the senior center, at which 34 workbooks were completed and submitted. So the recommendations that we have presented to you today are therefore based on a massive amount of input from members of the community.
From all the feedback gathered, the project team has put together their final list of 15 recommendations. The recommendations that we will go through first include those that have received broad support, not only from the community, but also from the Senior Center Society, and we call these the green light go recommendations. So Elizabeth and Kate are going to guide you through each recommendation under the 4 major themes of facility, food services, marketing and communications, and programming. And administration was another theme that was added in by the project team. Then myself and Tim will talk about the staff action items that our team will carry out.
So the first set of recommendations are around facility. So although well constructed and kept, the senior center, as we have seen throughout the surveys and the feedback, has somewhat of an institutional feel. It's cold and uninviting. The bare, oversized tables are quite daunting upon entry into the building and induce a feeling of uncertainty. So there's a question, is there a large event happening? Am I allowed to sit down? The lounge room has a similar feel. There's a large couch with no alternative seating, leaving few options for those wishing to engage in small group activities or those who wish to engage in independent activities such as reading. As such, the project team recommends that the look and the decor of the interior be updated to a more active and vibrant feel that is both welcoming and comfortable. We'd like to improve the flow of social spaces where users can engage and socialize in both small and large numbers, as well as spaces that are suitable for reading and working on one's own. In addition, the team recommends the transportation options to and from the center be addressed in order to provide equal access to those with disabilities or those who are at risk of social isolation due to an inability to actually reach the center to engage with others.
So to update the look and decor of the facility, staff would like to create opportunities for visual art displays by engaging artists in our community and incorporating art into the public spaces. We'd also like to review opportunities to update the look of the interior of the facility, such as new coats of paint, new furnishings, etc. We'll also be looking for other ways to activate the space to make it more vibrant and more welcoming. Regarding alternative transportation options, staff would like to engage with BC Transit to see if the bus stop could be relocated closer to the center to make it easier for adults and seniors to access the center. We'd also like to install additional bike racks outside the building, as well as a bike maintenance station similar to the one we have at Bretton Park.
Additionally, parking causes a significant amount of confusion at the center. It is difficult to determine if the parking is for all center visitors or just members. There's little to suggest that there are alternative parking options available to the 6 parking stalls that are located directly out front of the center. As such, the project team would like to recommend updating the current parking plan to optimize the use of dedicated parking spaces and to educate users of the facility of the parking spaces available, as well as develop directional signage.
The center does currently have a Parking 101 brochure that highlights parking spaces below and around the center. This will need to be updated to reflect the current availability of parking. We'd also like to develop clear directional signage for both underground and the parking spaces at the front of the center, which includes spaces reserved for those with limited mobility. We will also work with Strata to ensure that dedicated parking spaces are being used by center visitors only. This will become more important as the hours of the center are potentially expanded into the evenings. One important consideration is that currently there isn't room to expand center parking, so we are working with what we have.
Finding the senior center can also be challenging. Currently there is a sign located on Bailey Street. The sign is approximately 8.5 by 11, about as large as a standard piece of paper. It's difficult to see. The project team, as well as many community members, see the current signage as a barrier to usage. As such, we would like to recommend improving the signage for wayfinding purposes to direct users to the center. Signage should include an improved image and branding for the center.
For this recommendation, staff actions would be as per the recommendation. Implementing this recommendation will have to align the wayfinding project as well as the district branding and marketing action plan.
Quality and cost of food services are important to older adults. Healthier food choices, improved quality of menu items, lower pricing, and espresso coffee were all highlighted in the survey comments. The project team was very appreciative of having Greg Van Heerden on the team. He is the owner-operator of G Van Catering, which operates at the senior center. Our recommendations are to work with the food service provider to engage customers on a regular basis to identify preferred menu choices. Continue to offer diverse menu choices, which should include a variety of healthy options, as well as options for those on restricted diets. And healthy food choices should be marked as such so that they can be easily identified on the menu.
To successfully implement these recommendations, Recreation Services and the Senior Center Society Board will continue to meet with the food service provider once a month for collaboration meetings. We look to expand the hours of food service to reflect facility hours, and will also incorporate more food service into our social programming. In our marketing and communication materials, we will include information about the food service available at the center to let community members know that it is available.
Moving on to marketing communications. Although the current marketing strategy provides the necessary information for current members, based on the number of users at the center, it is ineffective in attracting new older adults to the center and to the programs provided at the center. The project team recognizes the importance of a comprehensive marketing and communications plan. We believe, and the survey indicates, that there are a number of people in the community that are unaware of the center and its function within the Squamish community. Consequently, the team would like to recommend developing and implementing a plan that will address the most requested means of advertising to reach the broader community across a variety of age groups, including print media, the newspaper, and social media. We would like to consider partnering with other groups, businesses, organizations, and neighboring residents to broaden the marketing reach and improve the image and the branding of the center, which would help with the marketing campaign.
To implement this recommendation, will be putting a large focus on marketing the programs, activities, and events at the center, communicating the opportunities that are available, and we want to highlight that there will be something for all adults and seniors. We will also focus on marketing the Recreation Services Get Active 55+ card, which offers discounts on programs held at the Senior Center and a membership to the Senior Center Society.
There is great potential for a sponsorship program at the center. The project team envisioned a room naming program, which would result in increased income to support current programming and future programming, as well as it would increase community engagement. The team would also like to reach out to senior service providers throughout the Squamish community who may wish to use the center in exchange for services. To this end, the Senior Center would benefit from additional programming, as well as a variety of new services that may otherwise be inaccessible. In essence, creating a hub of senior services.
So this recommendation will fall into the district's sponsorship and marketing policy or strategy, and the center would be included in that. And as Kate mentioned, we'd also like to explore having senior service providers rent space, whether it be for physiotherapy, counseling, etc. This would not only help fill the space during quieter hours while providing a service to seniors, but it provides that service to them in a very comfortable and familiar environment.
It was clear from the survey results that older adults need as much variety in their programs as do younger adults. A myriad of suggestions, from sessions on RVing to language classes and outdoor programs such as hiking, running, camping and birding, were identified, giving future programmers lots of ideas to work with. Our recommendations are to expand program offerings to ensure diversity in subject matter, to offer programs which focus on visual and performing arts, for example, music, cooking and dance, health and wellness, both physical and mental, social opportunities and events, education and intergenerational connections.
As Elizabeth pointed out, there is a lot of opportunity here for the expansion of programming, which is really, really exciting. There were hundreds of suggestions from the community that detail programs, activities, and events that they would like to see and participate in, which will help to guide our team when programming. The main takeaway was that the community wanted to see more diversity in programming and subject matter, and in order to achieve this, staff will engage in partnerships with groups such as the Squamish Arts Council, Quest University, the Squamish Nation, Vancouver Coastal Health, Squamish Climate Action Network, the library, the Hotspot, and others. Those partnerships will support the development of diverse programming opportunities to attract more facility users. We'd also like to pilot a variety of new programs, including intergenerational programs and out trips to attend events or take part in an outdoor program.
Adults of all ages love to party, so the suggestion to include more vibrant community events where food and alcohol were available was not surprising. Our recommendation is to host special events for seniors and the broader community where food and alcohol, on occasion, are offered.
The social events where alcohol is served will be hosted by the Senior Center Society and supported by our staff team. The Society is aiming to have 4 of these types of events per year, but this could increase. Throughout the rest of the year, staff and the Senior Center Society Social Committee will work together to expand on social events, as we heard from the community that they would like to see many more social events offered.
Among some of the survey suggestions that stood out was a suggestion of more openness to diversity and diverse cultural perspectives in the programming, so that all members of our community feel welcome at the center and its programs. Our recommendation to integrate diverse cultural perspective into programming and offer programs that appeal to a broad range of cultural backgrounds in the community. Response to the surveys showed that people in our community are concerned about the cost of programs and making the centre's activities available to all. Our recommendation: to offer a variety of affordable and some free programs. Finally, older adults want to continue to feel a part of the community and to continue to contribute to the needs of the community. Our recommendation: to develop a volunteer program with the goal of supporting and encouraging volunteerism at the centre.
Many great ideas came out of the recommendation to integrate diverse cultural perspectives into our programming to appeal to a broader audience. Staff will look to partner and engage with the Hotspot Community Resource and Welcome Centre, as well as Totem Hall Recreation and the Squamish Nation. Multicultural meal nights, evenings of cultural song and dance were some of the ideas that were brought up from the team. To increase accessibility, staff will look to expand free and low-cost programming opportunities. One way this could be done is to engage with partners to explore grant opportunities and also the development of a volunteer program to have more volunteer-led programs. We will also include more recreation access pass information in our marketing materials.
We recognize, moving on to administration, we recognize the great work that the Senior Center Society has done, and we want to continue to support the work that they do. We also recognize that we are recommending changes to the center, and we think it's important that there's a broad representation of adults involved in the center and the implementation of the recommendations that we are presenting here today.
So under support for the Squamish Senior Center Society, we think it's important, as Kate mentioned, to continue to recognize and support and celebrate the good work the Senior Center Society has undertaken, but to review the collaboration agreement and highlight areas where we can support, more support would be beneficial, and also to work with the Society to engage a broader range of representation on the board from those in the 55+ community and potentially others, i.e. baby boomers, gender balance, etc. We also believe that it's important to create an implementation team to support staff to implement the recommendations. And that balance on this team should be with project team members, Senior Center Society board members, and arts community members. With the implementation team, we believe we should update the vision, mission, and values of the center to reflect the project team's recommendations. So now we're at the yellow light. Yellow light represents broad support, but there is some very specific friction with the Senior Center Society. The recommendations in the yellow light section still align with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, but the staff's actions are comprised to help mitigate the Society's concerns. The main concern that is understood is the center becoming a multi-purpose hub for all ages. The recommendation from the project team is to rename the center. Some considerations on this. The Senior Center Society has been supportive of a name change, but they would like to keep seniors in the title. And they provided the example of Seniors Activity Center. And this was a letter we received on February 7th. The project team voted, as you've heard, 9-1 to change the name of the center. The District of Squamish survey results are the following. 36% of respondents prefer the name as is, while 64% thought the name should be updated, with 51% saying it should be updated without any reference to an age. 13% said they would like it updated, but to maintain an age reference. Out of the 27 comments received at the open house pertaining to the renaming of the center, 6 respondents preferred the name as is, while 21 respondents thought the name should be updated. 12 thought it should be updated without an age reference. 9 thought it should be updated with an age reference. A consideration is that by keeping the name seniors in the title, it could potentially deter some from using the center. There's a potential of what the branding could look like.
Tim, just give it Councillor Elliott,
Sure.
just for clarification purposes.
Yeah. Those percentages, Tim,
Yes.
how many surveys were actually filled out? Because you can't tell what 50% is.
50% of 10 is.
What's the actual number is what
What's
she's
the actual number?
There,
64% of how many surveys?
that'd be 400 plus 440 odd surveys.
So you're saying there's 437 surveys, of 437, it was how many percent? 60?
It would have been 64%.
But then it says out of 27 comments received at the open house.
The open house had visitation, so the open house is different than the survey. At the open house, we had approximately 57 attendees. 34 workbooks were completed. Of those 34 workbooks, 12 said to update the name without an age reference, 9 said to update with an age reference.
That's of the 27, of the 57 that actually made a
Correct.
comment on the name.
Correct.
Correct.
So to Councillor Elliott's position, that would be 279.68 actual people. Well,
279 people.
Approximately.
I don't know where the 6A comes from, but that's what.
well, I had to divide it to 64%.
Okay to carry on?
We're just going to carry on with the presentation. If it's a point of clarification, you'll have to go to the podium.
Point of clarification.
Thank you.
Would you state for us that these questions were answered by any and all age groups, not by seniors? You didn't ask just seniors what the name should be. You asked any age group. Is that correct here?
This is anyone that was at that event, correct?
Right.
So, yeah, so at the survey results, so we had, of the 400 odd, 71 odd percent were of 50 years plus. But anyone can answer a survey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, continue, thank you.
Facility hours. So there was a commitment to arts, culture, and social programming on evenings and weekends. We would also like to bring in some active programs that will be offered during what would be the now off hours, so after 4 p.m. So just to go into the staff action. And I skipped a point there. So obviously the draft recommendation is to expand the hours of the facility to be open for programs during evening and weekends. The recommendation is to retain programming commitment to seniors from 9 to 4, Monday through Friday, and then to open the center during other times with a focus on arts and cultural programming. So some of the considerations and staff actions are we believe we should increase the operating hours, extending into evenings and weekend time slots. We believe we should commit to an adult-oriented facility to alleviate some of the concerns around children potentially running around and impacting the experience of older adults. We believe that a commitment to arts, culture, and social programming on evenings and weekends is a good fit with the senior center. We believe and are recommending that families be welcome, but with the expectation that children are supervised and to be respectful towards other users in the facilities. The staff would also create a code of conduct for the facility to encourage respectful and purposeful use of the space. We would engage with the Squamish Public Library to seek guidance. So what we're trying to say there is think library as opposed to Brennan Park. We would have staff at the center to engage with users to promote the code of conduct where required, when required. We would train staff to engage those as needed. We would install a security screen to enable the center to be open for extended hours with minimal staff hours used. So some of the positive impacts we believe that this recommendation will achieve is it will create an adult-oriented facility and will attract adults and seniors who may not want to attend a program at Brennan Park Rec Center due to the noise and the level of activity there, and to create more space and focus on arts, adult education, and activity. One of the negative impacts is that it will not address any of the programming wait lists that we are seeing at Brennan Park Recreation Center. Questions?
Questions? Council, are there any questions at this point, Councillor Elliott? And please, if anyone from the audience has a question, at this point we're just trying to get all the questions on the table, and then there'll be lots of opportunity for the dialogue to continue. But if you have a question, just put your hand up and I'll acknowledge it. Thank you. That's all.
What's the anticipated closing hours if you're extending the hours?
We are hoping to match Brennan Park hours, so we would probably be going from about 9 to 9. We haven't determined if we would have closure on a weekend day, on a weekend, or one night per week. We with the budget increase for staffing, it's not 7 days a week, it would be 5 days a week.
Recognizing some of the concerns around children, did the committee consider having a minimum age for groups using that center? So 10 and up. So all the little kid programs stay at Brennan Park, but maybe ages 10 and up can use this facility to try and
various models have been considered. A key consideration that through the surveys and public engagement was that intergenerational programming and social programmings involving grandparent, grandchild are very important, and we didn't want to put a restriction on that.
Yeah, please come on up, come up to the podium, and just if you could, just for the record, state your name.
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm Sherry Ballard, but I believe he said this is not going to alleviate your wait list. What are your wait lists and why are you doing this if it's not solving your issue?
Can you speak to the wait list issue?
Sure. So as we know, our community is rapidly expanding. Any patron that visits Brennan Park Recreation Center during after-school hours would see that it's a very, very busy place. Staff have done our best to address wait lists through processes and improvements, but wait lists are starting to grow, and we're at facility capacity. Through expanding the senior center, it will not address those wait lists per se for children, but it will provide the opportunity to expand into the arts, expand adult-oriented programming, and hopefully grow those areas, which might alleviate some of the pressure on Brennan Park. But as the community grows, I believe there should be more of a focus on adult programs, seniors programs, health programs, educational programs, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Any other questions for clarification purposes? I want to just get all the questions out of the way. I don't see any more hands. Mr. Sherwood, did you want to maybe speak to it and share your experience? Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Mayor Heinzman for giving us the opportunity to be here today to speak to you. My name's Michael Sherlock. I'm honored to be the president of the Squamish Senior Society Centre Board. And originally I would love to have given a PowerPoint presentation which would have
Mr.
made
Sherlock, I wonder if you wouldn't mind going to the podium then.
Not at all.
Yeah, and speak into the microphone, because then it
I'm
will
used to
actually
being thrown
amplify.
out of the room, so that's
Never do that.
by this lot.
Yeah, just it will help, I believe it'll help amplify for the room.
Yes, no problem.
And speak right into the mic if you can. Or closer.
No, just kidding. Yeah. I'll try to keep it a little bit lighter for you because this is, you know, I'm sure a long process for you all. And I appreciate the amount of work that you people put into things. Rather than give you all these statistics and PowerPoint presentations that I could have done if we'd have had more time, but I wanted to let you know that I'm going to present today. I'm going to ask you to reject this proposal. And I'll give you reasons.
Don't force me to take the gavel up, because try to keep this room as neutral
Yeah,
as possible
that's
so we
right.
don't intimidate anyone.
Well,
Wanna
it's
make
hard
sure
to be
everyone
neutral, I
is
guess, but
free
anyway,
to
yeah.
speak.
You can't intimidate this fella here.
No, I'm not worried about him.
Now, I am also going to outline some of the flaws in the proposal presented by the Rec Department. I'm going to show you why you all need a senior centre in Squamish, and why you need to do the right thing today. Before I start, though, I want to sort of just take you off the serious parts of things, and I want you to just close your eyes for a moment, everybody. And I want you to think about your retirement years. Most of you are not retired. And I want you to think of how you think you will spend your retirement years. Just think about that for just a moment. Okay.
I have to come back from Mexico now?
Well, you've proved my first one. I'm sure that most of you are probably thinking about moving to a warm place with a sandy beach. I think I got you on two now, right? To a small town where you once visited and fell in love with. You imagine living in a beautiful home, maybe on 10 acres of wooded seclusion. That you and possibly your partner would go for nice strolls every day. And that your children and your grandchildren will come and visit you often. Not too often, but often. But now I'm going to ask you a serious question. Did any of you think, I think I'm going to get sick? No? Okay. Did any of you think, I think I'll get divorced? Did anybody think, I think I'll lose my job, I'll get fired? No? No. We don't want to visualize negative things. We don't want to visualize bad things happening to us in our lives. We don't want to be thinking about being left alone to fend for ourselves when we're not capable of it. But the reason for that is because in our thoughts, everything is possible in that visualization. Everything. We can be whatever we want. Unfortunately, though, those bad things can become a reality of life. I'll just give you a personal thing. When I was in my 40s, I had a financial advisor tell me I needed to have $1 million in my portfolio to maintain my current lifestyle. I laughed. Yeah, sure. It was a ludicrous sum at that time when I was in my 40s. $1 million. Well, you know, I was earning a six-figure income, so I wasn't earning a small amount of money. So, you know, even that $1 million sounded ludicrous to me. You see, I thought, I don't have anything to worry about. I'm going to be okay when I get older. You know? But one of the most crucial things that you have to think about is how much will you need when you get older to live a comfortable, enjoyable life? For some of us, it will be achievable. For most of us, it will not be. We're seeing some situations around Squamish now where people are having to sell their homes because they can't afford to live in Squamish anymore. Not because of anything the council's done, it's just the greed of people wanting to make more money, more money, more money. One of the most crucial reasons for having a senior centre is to have it be there should you experience some of these negatives, the realities of life. If you're lucky enough not to do so, good for you. But what about the people who do need it? Having a place to go where you can talk to people who've been there and done that, who can show you the way to overcome these problems that you're having, to have a great life, but get through the tough times as well. I know because I'm talking personally. I mentioned when I was 40, I was healthy. I used to swim every day. I used to go and do a mile swim before I went to work. And I had a great job, loved it, lovely family. And now I am a senior. And the last time I counted, that was not a 4-letter word. But if you read these reports, it sounds like it is, because they want to take that name out of everything that's revolving around. This is called the Senior Centre Revitalisation Programme, but we don't want a senior centre if we listen to that report. But I assure you we do. One of the things I like to think about is that I'm old. And you say, well, think about that? Yeah. I tell you the reason why. In a few days, I'm going to be celebrating my 77th birthday. In 2 weeks, I'll be 77. That's old. But I count my blessings that I'm that old. And the reason for that being is when I was 52, I told you I was fit. I swam every day. Every year I'd go for my physical, and my doctor would say to me, well done, Mike, you're in a great shape, keep it up. But when I was 52, I went to the doctors, and I said, hey, still in great shape? Got to keep it up? He went, well, believe you me, I thought, well, what? Well, cut a long story short, I had malignant cancer of the kidney. I had my kidney removed. 1 month after I had my physical, I had to go in and have my kidney removed. I survived it. 25 years. Wonderful. Most people don't. I had a friend who had exactly the same thing, and we used to share each month because they said, if you don't get it back in 5 years, you can forget you had it. Well, 3 months before my friend's 5th anniversary, he went in. Before his 5th anniversary, he was dead. But I'm here. And there are people that are around this town who are going through those same problems, because I know I used to take them down to the cancer centers, for taking them down to go and get treatment. I was able to counsel them and help them to be positive. I was able to help them to start looking and living in their life. That's what you get when you go to the senior centre. We may not have a pretty place the way we'd like it to, but we can help each other. We need that senior centre. So, life is something to be treasured. Not 1 minute should be wasted, or be put in a box so you don't lose it. You can't lose it. It should be let loose, and you should be free and should enjoy yourself. Some of these people don't have that opportunity. We can give it to them by having a senior centre. So, what we're looking at here, we look at this thing that we've had, the presentation, I shouldn't say thing, I didn't mean it derogatory. And I want to thank the people who were on that committee. You did a lot of work. The sad part was that we did that work a year and a half ago and gave that information to Tim and to Patty. And we made probably 90% of these recommendations came from our surveys that we did and our talks. But when we asked them to be done, we were told there was no money. You couldn't do it. We couldn't stay open any longer because it's too expensive. There's no money in the budget. We said that we would like to prettify the place, beautify it, make it look good to people, make it warm. No money in the budget. However, we just found out not long ago that there's going to be approximately $7,000 in the budget to put a fence around I say a fence, it's going to be a gate around the reception area. You see, we want to make the place feel welcome. So what do? We make it look like Alcatraz, you know, by putting a gate up. We were told that you could not have the place open at night without having an administration person there. But now they're going to put the gate up, and now they'll be able to have that for their own purposes, not for ours. We were not allowed that. We were not allowed to have an evening program unless there was something else that could support it. It's a problem that is recurring every time we go. There's no money. But there was money to do this revitalization program. And as a matter of fact, I'd like to know just how much it costs to do this program. I would be surprised if it was less than $100,000, because it's been 11 months. You have a consultant that you brought on to do it, and I'm sure she doesn't get paid $20 an hour. So I'm saying that it's bad. It should be public knowledge, so can you tell me how much it costs?
We can get that information.
Yes, I would like to have that. Thank you. And the other thing is that there's another $73,300 in the budget this year that's going to do to bring all of these things into play, but we didn't have enough money for it. So I'm asking that the council to look at this through realistic eyes. It's a lovely presentation, very well laid out, very nicely said, but it's all what we said a year ago, and it cost you nothing. Because we're volunteers, we didn't have to get paid to come up with those answers. We spoke to the seniors and asked them what they wanted. I would ask you to not waste any more money on naming it something that really is not going to bring more people in. Do you really honestly think that taking the word senior out is going to increase the amount to cover, I don't know, $150,000 of expense? I don't think so. As a former businessman, I would certainly question that. If one of my employees had come to me with those things, I would have said, you know, you go back and do your work. Because it's not good policy. In many cultures, seniors are revered. In Western culture, it's to be tolerated. Don't make Squamish like that. We've been talking now about all of the things, or they've been talking up on the thing about some of the people who you want to get in here. Well, one of the things, we don't want too many children around the center, and the reason for it is because, yes, you can have all of the rules that you want for the children to behave, but you know, kids don't listen to rules. And unfortunately, most of the parents these days, when they get in an atmosphere like go to Brandon Park and watch, it might be an 11-year-old that's in a program that the parent has brought, but they brought 2 of their other kids with them. They start talking to their friends, the children start playing around, they're climbing all over everything, they're throwing things around. That's exactly what happened when they got to the senior center, when they came there and started doing programs. It doesn't matter whether they're in a program where there's a lot of noise or activity, but it will still be an infraction upon the peace and tranquility that some of these seniors need at times. You're going to have little areas where they can go off and read and be quiet. Can they do that when kids are running around? And these are actual quotes. Jumping on the keys of the piano, throwing the chess pieces around, rolling the pool balls across the floor at each other, yelling and screaming and playing around, taking the jigsaw puzzles that somebody's been working on for this over a week and trying to jam the pieces where they won't go and ruining those, taking the books, throwing them around. Kids are kids. But this is not a place for kids, this is a place for seniors, and I would like to see it remain a place for seniors. Yes, we unfortunately rescinded. We started this collaboration with the Recreation Department. When I started this program 2 years ago, and I said to everybody, we've got to make this place vibrant, we said we want to collaborate with the society, with the Recreation Department. And yes, they collaborated. But behind us behind our backs. They were doing other things, trying to get this to become an annex of the recreation department. You think not? You look at this, but read through the lines. Why did they want senior centre removed? Well, I'll tell you the reason why. It's the same thing that happened in Whistler and Pemberton, because they want to get rid of the senior centre and have it to be used. Yes, sorry, not the board, not the committee that was doing it. I'm talking about the recreation department want to use this. I saw you shake your head saying, no, I know your intent was good.
Let's stay focused.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily interested in laying blame right now.
No, but it's what I'm saying is we've had to work with this and we can't do it. We've been cooperating. We can't do it because it's a one-way street and that's not the way it should be.
So we're trying to
This
move forward.
centre, and this is what I want you to know, this centre was given as part of the plan in 2009. It was given to this town as a piece of the development of this site that it's on, that plan R, right? It was given for the use of the Senior Centre Society. And I believe, we have a lawyer in the room, that it would be... Pardon?
Recovering lawyer.
Pardon?
Recovering lawyer.
Yes, but, well, hope it gets over it quick because I need to clarify that I believe this could be illegal to take that and give it to using for other purposes the way they plan. And so I would say to you that this is your opportunity to protect the interests of the seniors. We can't do everything. We're trying. We said, yes, we know the problems. We identified all these problems. We asked to be fixed. You asked, they mentioned about asking the transport companies to provide service. We talked about this before. How many have gone to that? Have you gone to the transport? You have to ask me. No, I'm sure you haven't. Doesn't need answering. Have you tried to figure out how the parking situation is going to be repaired? No, you can't. You've got so many spaces. How are you going to change it? There's nowhere else over there. We have 3 rooms in the center. 1 large room, 2 small rooms. It's not going to do all of this thing. Where are you going to do the cooking? You're going to teach people to cook. Where? Greg won't let you into the kitchen, so I tell you this, you're not going to be able to teach cooking in there. Where are you going to teach it anyway? It's a small place. You can't do it. All of these are pipe dreams. You're bringing in this Squamish Arts Council to organize the
Mike,
program.
I'm gonna try to focus your conversation a little bit more, because I'd like to ask specific questions of you.
Yes, you
today.
may.
So-
Yeah.
So you did articulate a number of things within the proposal that the society has already sort of proposed and you agree with. So there's a number of things within the proposal that you believe are good suggestions?
Absolutely.
And has the society sort of commented on, yes, we think these are all great?
Yes, if they are for seniors. But the outline that we've got here is not for seniors. It's for, everything that they've talked about from 9 till 4 is going to be for seniors. And then afterwards it's going to be for everybody else. We want it after hours for the seniors. Seniors don't go to bed at 4 o'clock at night and on all-day weekends. They actually do other things, and they want to do other things. They just don't have anywhere to do them if you do this. That's the difference. So yeah.
Maybe, can I do a question through to Tim and maybe the committee? When you're doing and I just want to make sure we're focusing the conversation on, and we hear you.
We're here to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Within the process, were questions, there was definitely a question asked about how do we increase usership? How do we add more usefulness to this facility? Was there a specific question posed to how do we create more seniors participation in this facility through the committee?
Through you, Mayor Heinzman, it was discussed at length. There was a very strong focus on increasing participation for seniors, and I use the term older adults, 50 plus. one of the core issues that we're trying to crack is there are multiple generations of people over 50 now. What we are seeing, and I'll let the project team members speak for themselves, is that the center is not meeting the needs of those younger generational older adults. And that's what the project team's recommendations are mostly based on.
Sorry, I was just to speak to what Tim's saying. I think using the term senior can be a barrier to usage of the center because a lot of people 50, 55 plus don't actually identify themselves as seniors. Individuals who are 60 are sometimes hesitant to identify as seniors. So we don't want the term senior to be a barrier to use. It's not that we're trying to disengage seniors.
No, and I think everyone understands that point. I hope everyone understands that if you don't use the word senior, it becomes a barrier for seniors. I suspect if we renamed the youth center, the Squamish Youth and Senior Center, that might cause the youth a bit of consternation as well. So I understand the principle of dilution and how it can erode the foundation. Well, I understand that principle, and I think we all do understand that principle. And our challenge is figuring out how to take a facility that's underperforming and make it perform really well. And how do we make sure we're creating that safe, networked, socially networked activity center that is a resource center, is help augment mental, physical health of seniors, an education center, a place of congregation, of events, and that type of thing for seniors, because we're going to have more seniors as baby boomers get older.
25% now or
It's a growing
over?
segment of our population, despite we're a very young community on average, and we definitely have a lot of 5-year-olds and a lot of 30 and 40-year-olds, and we're going to have a lot of, I turned 50 this year, we're going to have a lot of baby boomers hitting that 60 and over segment of the population. So that growth will be coming. And I'm wondering within the committee's deliberations, what did that demographical analysis of the baby boomer bulge, and I don't mean that literally.
No, no.
This is the demographical bulge, not the love handles or anything like that. Was that demographical bulge analyzed in terms of the programming and the expectations in 5 years, 10 years in terms of what the need of that center will be for that seniors population?
Yes, Mayor, through you. So in your report, attached to it is a background document that was built for and with the project team to give them a sense of the operations and the revenue expenses background so that they can make some informed recommendations. I apologize, the numbers didn't seem to stick to it, but I think it's on the 3rd page. You can see the Squamish demographics. And as we know, Squamish has a very large youth population, but as that ages, and the census data is from the previous one, not the one just completed, I guess 2016. So as of 2011, there was a very large bulge between 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59. And then it tapers off as the age progresses. So we are anticipating a very large baby boomer and Gen Xer population that will be looking for adult-oriented programming, and as per the recommendations. And this isn't just Squamish. The background on this is senior centers are all questioning. Not all changed their name, but all of them, that's not fair, many of them are questioning their operational model. As a lot of these were built on the 80s, some in the 90s, the model, not necessarily the center. And it has been seen that it needs to evolve to meet the needs of generations as they approach that age.
through a little bit more how children are incorporated into extended hours, because most of those activities take place at Brennan Park. And I think that's the appropriate place for them. I certainly have seen many examples of what Mike's talking about in terms of misbehaving children. And that center is really not set up to entertain young children at all.
Really isn't. Because if you're in one room, if I may just interject, if you're in one of those small rooms and there's a dance thing going.
agreeing with you, Mike.
Sorry? Yeah, I know. That's why I just want to enhance it, so from the knowledge,
So-
you can't do the other program.
So I see the recommendation to open up the hours to focus on adult-oriented and arts and cultural programming. And then in a bullet below, I see families are welcome, however, the expectations that children are supervised. And I'm trying to reconcile, are we putting children's programming there? Because I thought we were trying to move adult programs from Brennan Park to the downtown location, not children's programming.
Correct. So, and if I may, Councillor, just to back up a little bit. So the Parks and Recreation Master Plan recommendations was providing us our broad guidance on how to take this task on. And the recommendation in there is to protect the seniors center priority program between 9 and 4. We quickly put in our values that we recognize that and want to maintain that. The discussion was around how far, how many programs, what are the age groups. We didn't go into it with that prejudgment that no, there wouldn't be any children. However, after looking at all of the information, the project team's recommendations, and hearing from the Senior Center Society of their concerns, it was okay. The staff recommendations are, let's acknowledge the Parks and Rec Master Plan 9 to 4. That's done. We're not touching that. But after 4 o'clock, it will be an adult-oriented center. The idea is that no, we would not program children's programs in there, but we heard a very strong need and a very strong recommendation from the community, and I believe even from the Seniors Society Board, is that there wasn't an idea to exclude children altogether. They wanted intergenerational programming. They wanted social programming. If there's a social dinner, that they could potentially bring their grandchild or family to go to a volunteer dinner. That is the expectation. We are not looking to put children's programs in there on their own, but if there's intergenerational or if there's arts programs that fit between a mentor-mentee, we didn't want to make an expectation that, no, if you're a child under 18 or a child under 12 or a child under 30 or under 40 or under 50, you're not welcome to the center.
Okay, I just want to check. So, you know, my partner is doing family yoga with our girls at Brennan Park, but that's a great program that could be moved to the center because both children are with him. And they go and they participate, it's quiet, and then they leave. That kind of idea. But what causes problems when I've been there is when there are older siblings participating and younger siblings just get to run around like that area is Brennan Park. And in Brennan Park, you can climb on the furniture, you can climb on the climbing wall. The senior center isn't like that, and I just want to make sure that we're not headed in that direction.
So that puts us in a position, and there's not a yes or no to that, I don't think. That puts us in the position as, do we deny entrance to an older sibling if there's a parent in that in the child taking a program at the center? How we're trying to address and how we think we can address that is by creating a culture there, creating an environment through code of conduct, similar to a library and different approaches, that's inappropriate. And that staff would address that, unlike Brennan Park, where play is encouraged, running is encouraged. But at the senior center would be a bit of a library sort of, shh, be quiet. This is not the place for it. If you have some quiet time activities. And also the other step would be an implementation team to look at these considerations and all the what ifs that might come up with it.
I would like Corinne Lonsdale to come on up. I saw your hand, and I would like to acknowledge that this is one of our free persons. So as you know, Corinne was the mayor of the council, but most importantly, she is one of our few free persons, freedom of the city persons. I don't want to say free man, because that's, you know.
Maybe when I'm through here, you'll take it away from me.
No, I would never do that.
I hope not.
And that acknowledges a lifetime of dedication to this community, so.
So, and I'm going to take you back, because, you know, some of you have been here almost a lifetime. I have been here a lifetime. But I want to clarify something. Just because you're 70 does not mean you're old. Because I'm over 70, and I am not old. Having said that, though, I want to, looking at this subject, which was referred to me only earlier today, I had a call. I only just got home a couple days ago doing what I guess was suggested by Mike. We all like to do when we retire. I was in the sunny south, but anyway. So, you know, I want to start by saying I know that it is council and staff's focus to make the best use of our facilities and our resources. That's a given. Sometimes, though, I think, we maybe go a little too far, and I'm thinking we might be doing that right now. Because I took a look around, I was thinking in the short period of time I had to think, I thought about what other facilities we have in the community that are single purpose, and we do have a number. You might say the swimming pool is single purpose. If you don't swim, you don't go there, but we all pay for it. I've never been in the pool. I support the pool, happy to pay for it. I don't play hockey on the, or not hockey, soccer on the all-weather fields or the turf fields or whatever out there. Maybe if I was 30 years younger, I might, but I don't, but I support them, and I'm happy to contribute towards them. Cycling parks and trails, and on it goes. I think we find ourselves in a really rather unusual situation here today because we're looking at a senior center. And the seniors never asked for the District of Squamish to run their operation. Right. They never asked that. Hey. The district said you can't be in there without a one of our people on the site at whenever the center's open. That's a given, and that goes back to 2009. So I guess before I go any further, I wanted to also now say about this long process that you referred to, Mike. This is not a long process. This is the shortest process, one of the shortest I've ever been part of. This process of obtaining the senior center goes back into the 1970s, that long ago. And I'm telling you, we've had all kinds of surveys over the years and whatever else. And if you did a survey today and you asked the question of the community about prioritizing, and let's say there was a youth issue there and there was a seniors issue there and some other issue there, I'm telling you 90% of the seniors will cite the youth issue as being the most important. So I'm saying one of the reasons it took 30 plus years is because the seniors are very, very poor at advocating for themselves. That's just the way it is. And as Mayor Heinzman said, over the years to come, as much as we are a single group, we're growing in numbers. So we need that senior center. And I was just handed this, and I thought it was kind of cute, what Maureen Gilmore had written in her column back in 2009. She said, I thought the long wait for our very own center was well worth it. So she was referring to the 30 years. So when we go back to 30 years, I don't know, maybe some of you are aware, Patty, I think, or Mayor Heinzman, Councillor Race, we're both on the council when we've gone through a lot of this. Councillor Pryor's been around for a long time too, but way back, and I guess it would have been the early 70s, Pat Brennan, when he was mayor, had council set aside, I believe it was 3 acres or thereabouts of land over on 3rd Avenue, not just for housing, but also for a senior center. And that kind of got lost a little bit over time. But there actually was another resident in this community at the time. His name was Bob Reynolds, and he lived over on the corner of 3rd, I think, and Pemberton. And he kept coming before council over the years, over and over again. I was there in 1983. I was there when he'd come and he tried to tell us how the seniors needed this. There were 2 senior societies at that point in time, neither one of them was. One was Branch 70, and I can't remember the name of the other one. But they both had financial resources, and they both had a whole lot of energy and wanted to get on with it. Well, unfortunately, it took forever to get there. And I mean, I think it's interesting to look around the room today. I see Mr. Miles, I see Herb, I see Harold, I see Bill Berg. In fact, as one of our earlier councillors left a few minutes ago, Tor was probably sitting at one of those tables when this was an issue way back then. So it's not something that just happened in 2009. This senior center for the seniors of the community has been striven for forever and a day. And I guess it kind of troubles me. So over that period of time, as much as the District of Squamish certainly had to come on board, I was on council, I was a councillor at the time, I wasn't, had to come on board and work with BOSA to facilitate what we have there today. And Greg Gardner was mayor and made the big announcement and cut the ribbon and all the rest of it. But behind the scenes, Greg didn't do a lot of work, and neither did I, but I'll tell you, some of those names I just mentioned a few minutes ago and others besides worked very, very hard to achieve what you have over there today. And money from those societies that I mentioned earlier went into that as well. So I know the District of Squamish has supported it financially over the years and has done maintenance over there. But it's still a senior society, and we still maintain those other institutions and facilities that I mentioned earlier too. We pay for the swimming pool, which could be better utilized as well. There's different things. And talk about kids. I remember when they did the survey back in about 2005 or 6. Harold, you were there on the committee. The seniors really did not feel that children and the seniors could mix very well in the same area. And it wasn't just because of the programming. It was for some of those reasons. I think you even cited regarding how the kids get going. And you get the skateboarders outside and other things. And there's actually a lot of over 50s that live in that building. So, I mean, I'm not sure that it's a good mix either, that part of it. So where I am with the name, I don't know whether you're aware, Mr. Hoskins, that the community actually named the senior center. There was a contest back in 2008 to determine what the name would be, and the community of the day, with lots of input from the seniors, determined a name. I think there was 3 names, I think, if I remember, you remember, Mayor Heinzman? And we chose from the 3 names, and with full support from the seniors, I would suggest you leave the name alone. I would suggest you leave, as I understand it, the seniors' purpose of that facility is not just specifically for seniors, but it's first and foremost for the seniors. So if there's a program that can run, and I have to break even, I pay taxes, I don't want to pay for a dead horse. So, you know, if there's programs there that can break even and make money that the seniors want, then the seniors should have those programs. On the other hand, if there's programs that the seniors can tolerate that aren't a bunch of little kids running around, well then that can happen too. But I think it just needs to have a better coming together of the rec department and the seniors society. And I don't know that there's anything else I want to say. It's just like, please get together and work out the problems, because I don't think this is what we're going to do.
Yes.
I allowed some applause there for former Mayor Lonsdale because it's hard to prevent that from happening. Councillor Pryor, and then I'll go to Cheryl.
Yeah, thank you. And, you know, I remember also when the seniors thing was in process, and Mayor Sutherland was involved before Mayor Gardner, so I just wanted to throw his old name out there for fun. And, you know, when I look at all the things on the report, and, you know, there's a lot of good stuff in here. And, you know, the way it went down is kind of the way it goes at City Hall. You come up with a good idea, then you have to go through the process of coming up with a good idea. So, like Corrine says, that really wasn't a long process. And unfortunately, that's the facts. That's just the way it works. So don't feel bad about the process. So, you know, the kids one, and I appreciate what Karen said, because I think I've got a grandkid, and if Bill invited me in for lunch, I'd like to bring the grandkid. And if it's not allowed, I mean, that would be...
If you pay, you can come.
Yeah, I'm just saying, so I don't understand that part that clearly. Yes, we don't want to program a bunch of little things in there for kids. And the time used for seniors, you know, that is kind of a gray area to me also, because, I mean, 4 o'clock, okay, everybody go home, we got something else going on now. I think...
That's not the intent.
Okay, that's not the intent, that's good.
Can I see your ID?
Yeah, so, you know, I mean, I just want to take a little bit of the things that I got here. But as far as the name goes, I agree 100% that it should be the senior center. For some of the reasons that Corrine said there. But there's still work to be done here. And, you know, there's wayfinding. And it says we have to get the image of the place up. So I think that before anyone seriously starts looking at changing names, why don't you do a bunch of these things on the list that you're going to do that is going to bring more people in? You know, special events, rent out space, sponsorship, you know, art, improve transportation, fix decor. I mean, why don't we do that stuff first and see if that gets the numbers up? Because I do think that you know, there's a lot of people in the audience tonight because they feel strongly about that name. It's just a name. Some people feel, though, that the name is a big detractor, and that's what's preventing people from coming in. So I think let's do phase 1, get a bunch of this stuff done, and then if nobody shows up, call it whatever you want. But I think people will start. And I went for lunch there, just to tell you. Occasionally I go there for lunch. It's close and you get a good little workman's lunch. And I said to my partner, I said, oh, where do you want to go for lunch? He said, let's go to the Scenes. I said, oh, okay. So the Scene Center. Anyway,
How do you spell that?
Okay, for that.
But, you know, so anyway, that's my sentiments on that, and I do think that it is dedicated to the seniors. They worked hard for it. The first board I ever was on was the seniors board when I was 25 years ago. I joined this little group, and I was the youngest guy, and I admired that group so much for the work that they did, getting that land, and building what they're built there, and I think in their memory, it should stay the same as well.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
I'll go back up.
Sure.
Yeah,
Just so
could you-
the people can hear you better.
You know, just listening to the 2 comments from people, it makes me realize that that's why I love Squamish, because people will say their opinions and keep them, you know, within reason to what they want to do. But all of these comments were what we have been advocating as senior advisory board. Our job is purely, and when I'm saying what I'm saying, it's not personal, it's for that group that I represent. That's why I took this job on, to represent those people that don't get their voices heard. But what we have to do is protect those rights today, because you saw how long it took us to get it. I tell you, it takes that long to lose it if we don't keep on our toes and keep actively involved. What have the seniors done during, you mentioned this 11 months is slow. Well, it is slow for getting something approved, but what have we done as a senior advisory board? Well, if you have been over to the seniors in the last 12 months, you've seen sing-along nights now, which is increasing the attendance to the seniors. We have people sitting in there. They're not going to sleep at 4 o'clock. This is in the evening. They're all up there singing and having a great time, dancing, having a good time. The advisory board got those going because we've got a social committee now. We did that. They are now getting all these activities. We had a tea this afternoon.
And if you had more wine at those.
Oh! I tell you, heaven help those little kids if they come in then, because I tell you, they'd be thrown at. No. Yeah, they do. They would like to have wine. But what I'm saying is, they've been doing the things. We've got a choir now that the seniors are going out to entertain other people. We've been doing things while everybody's been talking about what they think should be done. We are actively doing. What do the seniors do for the community? Well, the community needs a bus to take the teams to places. We've been trying to get a bus for the seniors, but there's never going to be any money. What we have done, though, we have contributed $15,000 towards the acquisition of a bus, so that instead of having to replace 2 old vans with 2 new vans, which don't do the job, they now can have a bus, thanks to the seniors making a generous contribution. But we had to call it a donation because that way we could have no ownership in this, because we could not get a guarantee of how much usage we would get on it. What do we want a bus for? We want to take our people to see Van Dusen, who couldn't normally go. We want to take them to the theatre in Vancouver, where they couldn't normally go. We want to take them to other centres and have interaction with them. That's the type of things that our advisory board has been working on. And who are these people, most of them on the board? All of those people that Corinne mentioned, they're still working at it. They didn't go home and say, well, that's it, my job's finished, and out they go.
No,
they're still working.
There's still
Yeah.
foundational community builders.
That's right.
Totally.
Still, they never stop. In other words, they're seniors though, but they're still working. Now, our present council, I had the pleasure of working with you on your election process when you were going to sit for council, and I said at that time that there was not one person that I wouldn't vote for in that group, and I still say that today. Thank you for the wonderful job you've done, and I can honestly say, whatever you decide, we have to go along with it. But I hope that you remember the seniors are doing things and are important. And they're your parents, maybe. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Waite, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go to our senior.
Thank you. And I'm also retired, and I guess the only advice I can give you about retirement is don't mess it up by going into politics. It has been interesting to hear the comments tonight. When I read this report, and I don't read all reports, but I read through this one. And there are a lot of good things in this report. I think we all agree with that, and I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I do support this report, but there are the 2 sticking points, I think, that I've heard. So with respect to the first one, the children, I don't believe, I mean, if one of you showed up for lunch with a grandchild, I don't believe that person would be barred.
No,
so they'd be able to come in. So to me then, it's a matter of programming. There is vacant time available, and so I think it's a matter of making sure that the programming that might be used or put in that space is focused on older adults and seniors. And broaden perhaps not just seniors, but broaden it a bit. But clearly, as Councillor Elliott mentioned, this is not Brendan Park. This is not where they run and scream. It is a different environment. It is much more like the library. That's, I think, a very good analogy because there are people there. There's nothing in this report, as I read it, that suggests we are taking that center away from the seniors. You're absolutely right. It was dedicated to seniors, primarily for the use of the seniors. but it is also fundamentally a district recreation facility, and the district is made up of people of more than just seniors. I think we all understand that. So I think there is a possibility to enhance the programming, to broaden the programming, but to stay away from programming that attracts children, because I can see that that would be not the appropriate place for that. The other advantage of that, I think, is that a lot of these things that we want to do depend on funding, and budgets are very difficult. We just spent the morning on the budget issues again, and I think the broader the programming is, the better chance we've got of justifying additional monies in the budget. So I think everybody can benefit from that. The other is the name. As Shakespeare said, "A rose by any other name would swell the smell of sweet." I think if the name is that sensitive, then let's just leave the name and see how that works. And if it doesn't seem to work, if it does act as a deterrent, then maybe we revisit that. But I don't think the intent is to take the primary focus of that building away from the seniors, so just leave the name as is.
Come on, Mr. President, we are running overtime. We have a special meeting we still have to do. I want to make sure council is focusing their conversation, so please make it brief.
Thank you. I had a long speech prepared, but you're lucky. I don't have it with me. Because I sent it to you by email. I know you read all my stuff, right? So instead, I went down to the newspaper office. And lo and behold, they got me this, which is from an article in the paper that appeared in September of 2009. And it reminded me of that event, which was a ribbon cutting for the senior center. And I attended it, so did my wife Patricia, and so did many of the seniors here. And you know, we had Mayor, what's his name? Greg Gardner, thank you. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read it. We had Mayor Greg Gardner do the ribbon cutting. And if there's one thing that stands out from that event, is that he said to us, "This is your home." And he looked at us seniors, "This is your home." And I would like you to know that, because you weren't there. So please recall that when it comes to the time to vote on these two motions that you have before you, or will have before you. And by the way, about the quality of your work, it was excellent. There's many things in your work that the committee did that we agree with. But you know, when you talked about that sign that you showed up there, being 8.5 by 11, you had the wrong measuring tape.
I didn't measure it.
That's okay.
So please don't say 8.5 by 11 because it offends me. I was the one who produced the sign.
Let's stay on topic, Mr. Mayor.
We paid for it. We had it put up because you guys, the district, wouldn't do it. Right? You wouldn't do it. We asked for year after year after year to have signs put to direct people to the senior center. Couldn't be done until we had a signage policy in place. Well, somebody suggested at the head of the table there, just go and do it. We did. So, so in summary, I see that our work involves expending a lot of negative energy. And I would like this to come to a stop because I can't do it anymore. We want to do positive things for the seniors, not constantly fight with recreation department over one thing or another. This has to stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, really appreciate all the call-ins. We've got to wrap this up. I think everything has been said, unless there's absolutely something brand new. I think you're ahead of the game, so.
Well,
okay.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Had a few.
I think we've heard a lot of information. I don't think we're going to hear anything new. We've had a lot to think about. So only please speak to new issues that haven't been talked about.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and people. Yes, I've heard a lot about it, and there's no need for me to really repeat it, and most of it I agree. It is an absolutely wonderful senior center, and I think it does deserve staying like such as a senior center because the population, of course, of Squamish is growing very fast. And I think the main reason for other people to come down now, And I think Tim, agreed with me on that, was that there wasn't room at Brennan Park, so that I strongly urge that Brennan Park be extended out a bit. It's a marvelous facility. And I even knew Pat Brennan when he was doing it. We used to be dredging up here at the time and met him. And so it'd be good to make sure that the reason some people are coming down to the senior center is because there isn't room at Brennan Park. So you said that you thought you could have it extended in 3 years. So the sooner the better, and I did write to all council and mention that, and hopefully it could be done quicker than 3 years, and that the senior center should remain as such. And I became a director just about 2 years ago because I felt that it was not going in the right direction, and I think that it will go there now, and it's, as Mike said, that there's so many more things going on and that it will become busier and busier and survive itself as a senior center rather than every center. Yes, good evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I haven't actually had my say yet, so I'm kind of trying to wait till the end, but go ahead, Councillor Elliott, because we do need to go for a special meeting for this.
Okay. I just wanted to comment that I thought the report was really well done. There's a lot of great recommendations in there, which I support. I know that people are sensitive about the name change, although the survey results would say that most people wanted it at least updated, although not everyone wanted to lose the age reference. So, I still think there's room to update the name as the community asked, and maybe it's senior centers and downtown activity hub. And so I think there's still room to work with that, but if it's a real stumbling block, I'll let it go. I think just like at Brennan Park, we designate times for adults in the pool and adults on the rink, and time for families at the pool and at the rink. And I think with the implementation team that you've proposed, I think it's a wise way to move forward to make sure the programming there fits with that venue, because it will get more input from the community. It's not just a District of Squamish decision about what programming goes there. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think, we still have the ability to reserve, a couple of nights a week just for the seniors, but maybe the other nights it's more broadly open to the community, and times on the weekend. I think the same way we use times at Brennan Park to segregate different pieces of our population, we can do that here too, to protect what is vital and important to the seniors, and still achieve our goals, which is to make the best use of that asset. So I'm pleased with what's been proposed here.
Thank you. We're going to cut it off now, Mr. Berg. I think there's been lots of comments. Council, no, I'm going to cut it off now. Thank you, though. So great participation. It's great to see people out here. I agree. I think the committee has done a really good job. There's fantastic recommendations in there. And I think most of them don't conflict with the intention and the historical sort of significance of the senior center. I do believe, though, that you do need to make sure you're protecting that as fundamentally a senior center. We're looking at a whole new seniors facility, apartment facility going up there in the next couple of years. You're going to have a greater density, and I think you're going to see a significant increase in the usage of that facility. I do think there is an opportunity to increase some of the programming that doesn't conflict with the intention of the senior center into the evenings on the weekends. I don't believe the name change is actually a better name change. I'm not sure what we'd call the Downtown Activity Center for adults and seniors. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But there may be a really good idea of what that name could be. But in the interim, I think we can create an environment there and the programming there that allows it to be a little bit more inclusive without compromising the intention and the ability for it to remain a safe social network activity, fitness, all those things for the senior demographic, which will be growing. As the community grows, it will be growing. I think what I'd like to do, with these types of things, you don't want to, you want to make sure you're inclusive. You want to make sure, and it sounds like the Senior Center Society really does feel that, you know, there's a lot of recommendations that they've been espousing for a long time in there. So what I like, and really it would be so much more helpful if the Senior Center could sign off on the recommendations, if they were tweaked and fine-tuned. I'm not hearing from any council members that we actually want to do a name change at this point. We only have 4 members of council here right now, unfortunately. So this is a committee meeting too, so decisions aren't actually ratified at this committee. They have to go to council anyway. But it would be, so what I'd like for this to come back to council in a form that the Senior Center Society supports, because it sounds like you support 95% of it, without the name change, so the name change as is, and perhaps some clear language about appropriate activities that don't compromise the intention of the center, to make it a little more clear about what kind of additional programming beyond, you know, people over 50, of which I am one now.
Oh, good.
So, and I don't, Tim is, so what I'd like for, I'd like the committee or staff to sit down with the Senior Center and say, okay, here's yes, we're not going to change the name. We can sign off on this document. It's all these things that we've been espousing for anyway. There's some really good suggestions, really good work by the committee there. Because this is the type of thing you want to come to council and we can wholeheartedly endorse it, knowing that the community, particularly the community that's very invested in this facility, is supportive of. And I think it's like this close, you know, I think that's achievable. And so maybe I'm looking to Mr. Hoskins and Mr. Sherlock to say, can we get there?
We can. And one of the things, by the way, from how I felt on Friday to today is drastically different, because to hear you all talking about it gives me a lot of hope. Friday I didn't have it. I was quite upset, to say the least.
And we
now
knew
I feel there's positives.
And we knew we couldn't have this conversation. The intention, and it was a scheduling mishap in my knowledge that I didn't know there was a conflicting event, so that's my.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I would also offer, that if, as a council, when this comes back, the advisory board would be more than happy to come and sit with you and explain the things, you know, in more detail, what we want to see. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Mayor Heinzman, I do have to say this. I had thought that we as a committee, including the president here of the Senior Society, I thought that we as a committee had actually crafted the recommendations, and that the Squamish Senior Society was agreeable to the name as it was being suggested, which was part of the recommendation. So,
no, that was not the one who was suggested. Only at that very last meeting, not the board did not have a chance.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not. I don't want to debate semantics, but yeah, it sounds
but
like.
most of the other comments, I do believe, have been on the
Supported.
table for quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not
All
worried
of the
about
other
too many.
comments.
Yeah.
It's just one or two that scared us.
Yeah. Can I feel it?
So just by a matter of process, I mean, all these recommendations kind of came from this working group. And so I know that we want the Seniors Society to support this document, but I also want our working group to support this document when it finally comes. And so I don't think the conversation is just between Tim and the Senior Center Society. It's got to involve everyone so that the document comes to us.
That was my intention.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I don't think it should.
And that's the way I like it.
No, I want this to come back as a consensus supportable document. I think it's 95% there. It doesn't sound like there's too much that's not, and I think it's easy to have one or two things that can erode it quite significantly. So once, I think we've moved beyond that. And so what I would like is that staff bring forward this, the recommendations to council, I didn't, to council with the support of the Senior Center Society at a future council meeting. Something to that effect. I think generally speaking, we're supportive of the recommendations. We want to make sure that the intent to preserve it as a senior center is sort of foundational within the document. It might be there. I just want to make sure there's consensus on it.
Can I make a friendly amendment?
It was kind of a really, not really a motion yet, but
Sorry, and I, as part of the project team and on behalf of the project team, if I may, I want to say to the society that it was always our intention to keep the senior center as a center for seniors. And we are 100%, as I stated before, happy to implement things that you are agreeable to. And that it's our intent to work with you and never against you.
If I may, if we could just potentially condense the direction to staff. As you mentioned, there's agreement amongst the project team and the Senior Center Society on 99%. If we remove the name piece, which I would suggest one minor tweak is to go with what Mike Sherlock and the Senior Center recommendation was to change it to the Seniors Activity Center, which is also on their signs. And that we focus just on how do we reconcile the adult programming after 4 o'clock and not to reopen all the recommendations, so we're not
No, I
starting.
think that's the nub of what we're trying to get to.
Just the two
Yeah,
yellow
you
lights.
articulated it more specifically, but I think that's the nub of what we're trying to get.
So the 2 yellow lights essentially.
So, yeah, and I think what we're hoping is that it comes back to council and it's supportable and there's a consensus document in front of us. Councilor Elliott, did you want to draft a motion?
The motion to direct staff to bring back a document that has the consensus of the project team and addresses the updates on the yellow lights as presented in today's report.
Is there a second? Second by Councilor Ray. Any more discussion? I think we.
Excuse me, for clarification, did I just hear the consensus of the project
Project
team?
team, of which
And
the Senior Center Society.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear that,
You missed
sorry.
that on
But you're a member of the.
No.
Yes,
So consensus is everyone has to agree. So if Mr. Sherlock is at the table,
You're at the table.
he
it's
has to
consensus
agree.
document.
Yeah.
That was the direction. Okay. I'm.
Because he's going to be voted out. you
Mr.
know.
Bessley, we
There's only-
can't hear you.
There's only one vote for him.
No, it's not a vote.
It's
It's
not
a
a vote.
consensus. Everyone at the table has to agree that this is a supportable document. You'll have to come up here if you have a question. Thanks.
My name is Diane Sherlock, and we're still waiting to find how much was paid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we would like to have that.
The budget numbers, yeah. Do you have the budget number here?
I don't offhand, I can make an estimate, but it might be better to bring it back.
Why don't you give me an estimate, and when this comes back to council, if you can have the actual number, it would be great.
Okay, I think it's approximately $12,000.
12,000? Okay, thank you. Ms. Glendon?
Mayor Heisman, I may be stating the obvious, but I feel compelled to say that there is no way that our staff were trying to do anything underhanded here. And I understand that this is an emotional issue, and I get that, but I do want to defend staff. This is some of the best public engagement that we've seen so far in embracing our IAP2.
Yeah, no, there was no misintention there whatsoever, I don't believe. I'm going to call the question, because we have to start this meeting in the next 10 minutes, or we're doomed. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to terminate the committee of the whole meeting, moved by Councilor Pryor, seconded by Councilor Reyes. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.